So, a few weeks back, my brother Jonathan and I had a conversation about vigilante justice and just how far some of us would go. And it got me to thinking, what is the tipping point for taking matters into your own hand? And do you or would you support vigilante justice? We're going to find out. Let's get into it. Good afternoon, good Friday afternoon. What was that song? Janae, it's Friday and the weekend's here. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Welcome, everyone, to Girl Listen. I am Gwendolyn G.R. Houston Jack, and I like to kick up some dust. Ha! That's why we're here. That's why we're here this afternoon. Man, let me tell you. So my brother and I really got to talking about tipping points. And at what point do you say, scrap it? I'm going to go for the jugular, right? Because everybody says, I would never, I can't. I'm going to tell you, I have said it once, twice, a cajillion times. I know my good parts and I know my bad parts. And we talk every morning. Hands down. So before we jump into this conversation, we are again streaming live to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you're on YouTube, we would love if you would like, share, subscribe to our channel. If you want to, there's like this little bell, a notification bell, let you know when things are going on. And we would love to know if you're watching live or in the replay, where you're tuning in from, city, state, country, whatever you want to share. But I am curious about this topic because I was shocked. I was really shocked when I started doing the research on like vigilante instances. And there are some that we know of, right? We have seen some that clearly went sideways. And we thought this person has committed murder, and turns out he was found not guilty. And so we know that there is this mindset of, I'm going to take matters into my own hands and do what needs to be done. And shout out to Danny for tuning in today. Hello, Danny. Glad to have you here. I want to jump into it because, like I said, I was shocked. The one instance that I found multiple instances is mothers defending their child, primarily with bullies. And before we get into it, shout out to Hayner, who's tuning in from LinkedIn. Hello, sir. And the Black Eighth Element, the brother. I'm sure you may have something to share here because this is our topic that we had, just deciding how far would we go. But people, the number of mothers that go ham for their child, and I'm not going to say that it's a environment thing, but there are a lot of them that came out of London. I'm just like, oh, okay. So I'm going to start with a couple of stories real quick. This is from this year. It happened last year, this situation. As it says, the child was so scared. The woman hits her daughter's bully's mom in front of her child to make sure they don't do it again. Okay. So we know that bullied is not a great thing. This mother had been bullied when she was a child as well. So she clearly has some feelings about it, right? So she just made a meeting with the bully's parents. The mother was rude, and so she went ham on her. And it says here, she threatened to do it again in front of the student who didn't leave her child alone, even if it wasn't right. Now, There are some people who feel that if your child gets out of pocket when they're underage, right, like a minor, that the parent is held accountable. We've seen that when kids steal things, depending on the crime, then yes, the parent is held responsible for that child's behavior. Now, bullying, man, I was bullied as a kid. I'm gonna go ahead and tell it. I showed up for the fights. I didn't always win, but I know this much: people stopped picking on me after a while. Just saying, you at some point you got to stand up for yourself. But times are different than what they were back when I was in school. The fact that some of these kids never hear that what they're doing is not right, either from the parents or the school. What do you do as a parent of a child who is getting bullied? And again, the question is, would you support vigilante justice? And I told my brother, I will say this right here, right now. If you touch my kids, now I'm an auntie, right? I'm a stepmother, but those kids are much older, but I got a grandson, a grandbaby. But touching the kids, it is a no. It is a place where you may very well find yourself going over the edge and doing what this mother did. It's a very good chance. Shout out to Gary, who is tuning in as well. And I would love to hear from those who are parents or aunts and uncles. Doesn't really matter. If there is a child in your life, would you go so far as to do what this mother did? But hold on. It gets, I don't want to say it gets better. I actually found myself clutching my pearls, right? So here's the second part. There was the video of this mother. There's a video of this mother again. She confronted the parents of the bully, right? And was clear that she will beat up her mother every day until you stop touching my kid. Now, I don't know how many whoopings her mother's going to take for her. And people are quick to say, well, two wrongs don't make a right. I get that. I get it. However, if your child has done what they've been asked to do, which is take this matter to the school, and the school does not act, what's left? I mean, I just want to know. Danny has a comment here. She says, I mean, mess with my kid or my niece and you can catch these hands. See, this is why you and I get along so well. I mean, and it's awful. Okay, so in so many hold on. We have to acknowledge 3 lefts do make a right. Okay, so maybe after 3 instances, perhaps they'll get it right. I'm assuming 3 lefts do make it right. You are correct there. But we have seen children who are bullied, right? I have seen it myself. We have seen young people commit suicide and do other things because they felt as if no one was hearing them or protecting them or acting on their behalf. So as a parent, do you go to the place of, I'm not going to touch you as a child because you're not my child, but I will touch your parents. And I will beat your parents, as she says, every day until you stop touching my kid. It's like someone has to take responsibility for this behavior. I'm not gonna lie. I would side with this mother. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I am that person. I know I told my nephew when he was in school, if somebody touches you, somebody hits you, then you got to pop them back. Now I'm going to share this instance. And this is probably why my mother said I would never go back to a parent-teacher conference. My nephew did get a call from the school. He did hit a young lady. I think it was like maybe 4th grade, I want to say. And so we go up there, my mother and I. And the teacher's talking and everything. And it's like, well, he hit a young lady and we don't hit girls. And my immediate question was, well, did he bring to your attention, right? You can tell the teacher, but the response was, well, you know how girls are. Okay, see, that's the problem. This whole idea of hitting someone is a sign of affection. You can go ahead and kill that narrative. Kill it. Because it's not, right? It's just not. And the fact that you have a child who told the adult in the room what was happening, and they're like, well, you know how girls do. It's only because she likes you. That's not an appropriate response, right? It's just not. Now, my response was, if she hits you again, you pop her. I'm sure there are people clutching their pearls right now, but look, This is where we are sometimes. I know it sounds awful, but I am honest about how I feel. And I don't like that idea, that narrative of a young lady or woman can hit someone because, well, it's a girl, it's a woman, that may be another conversation for another day, because I'm sure I opened up a can of worms there. We have comments coming in. Black Eighth Element says, everything has to have context for the correct reaction. I do agree. Okay. I like that. We have Ricardo is saying, hello. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for tuning in. Hayner has a comment here. He says, I believe the question comes down to how do you effectively change the mentality of the bully? Fortunately, the parent of the child who is being bullied has to consider a lot. I agree with that too. Because again, you have a child coming home every day, tormented. We have seen some kids who don't even want to go to school. Like, we know there are real impacts mentally and physically on these children. And I would love to say that the school would do their part. We haven't seen it, right? Like, we have not seen that yet. So this may not be the best answer, but clearly these London mothers, these mums, they're about the business. Gary says she's better than most and gave a warning. Okay. I know some who won't even see it coming. That is possibly true. I mean, okay. We all know as adults, violence solves nothing. Hello, the multiple wars that have gone absolutely nowhere well, never mind. We know violence should not be the first course of action. We know that. We know it. At the exact same time, I kind of feel like sometimes you got to get kicked in the throat a couple of times to realize what you're doing ain't right. I don't know. Maybe it's just the Jackson in me who believes in, like, you know. And I will say this, because my mother, although she's a retired minister, she was doing some damage in high school. Don't let her fool you, okay? We come from a different kind of stock here. Danny said that's how abusive people as adults think. It's okay, yeah. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Love that. Hayner says, with that said, I teach mine stand up for themselves. It's easier for me to support you defending yourself than the victim allowing the beating. Just have the confidence in asking if it's a whip-ass moment or a stern talking to. You know, my parents were clear. My mother was clear. They used to call her Horse Cartwright. If y'all seen Bonanza, when she was in high school, we'll have to talk about that some other day. But it was not for us to go out and create chaos and to, like, come out, you know, putting up our dukes. That was not our case. But it was a matter of, if someone's going to push you and we do the walking away, let's talk it down, and that doesn't work, trust, we're going to defend ourselves. Like, there is a place of what we're not going to do is have you knock books out of my hand and do other things. Like, I got a couple of scars from a couple of fights. You know, it is what it is. But what I have noticed, though, what I didn't notice, is that when you started setting up for yourself and saying, I will show up every day and we're going to be scrapping, then at some point you got to realize this is no longer the best thing for you. It's all good when you don't fight back. And then when you do fight back, you know, and I know they say hurt people. And yes, that is true. But, man, I know it's a hard one, which is why we say, how far do you go with vigilante justice? We all say, oh my God, it's awful. I have a twist on that. I really do have a twist. Danny says, hey, schools don't care half the time, right? You know, schools don't, and there's so much going on, but a lot of us still believe that if my child tells an adult what's happening, then things will take place and they'll be protected. And I just don't know if that's true. I mean, I just don't know. Gary likes to share, don't put your hands on someone unless you are aware and willing to deal with the consequences. That is always the case. Patty, why become the thing you're wanting to stop? Violence only creates violence. Well, you know what? That's a good point. Now, I'm going to say it again. I understand that in a perfect utopian world, we would not do such things. But I will also say, as the person who was bullied in school, when we, as in me, myself, and I, when we got to a place of standing up for ourselves and fighting back, that changed the story. Because all of a sudden, I'm not just a kid that you can push around and do whatever. It now becomes, if you push me, it's going to go down. Now, it's not a matter of winning. That was never the case. It was a matter of, I'm not going to allow you to treat me this way. But yes, it's one of those where, you know, you don't want to support it, but I do know that at one point my niece was bullied, absolutely broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart. And so you're in a different mindset when you see someone you love being hurt on a daily basis. It changes how you see stuff. Now, again, do I go out and say, bring your dukes every day? I do not. You know, clearly we look for other ways to solve it, but we also know that until you stand up for yourself, some people will keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. And, you know, like I said, Mom's was about them dukes back in high school days, and she just kind of, I know that I can be the sweetest person. I can also be the most ridiculous person. Full disclosure, I own and love every part of my ridiculousness. Danny says, like, I tell my son, walk away until you can't, then handle your business and I'll handle the school. I mean, it's so difficult, I feel, to pick a side. I do. And Ron is here. Good afternoon, Ron. Good afternoon. Yeah, you got to think about the consequences. And we know there are consequences. We know there are. Now, I got another one for you. This one, I was like, okay, maybe she went too far. I used maybe, but perhaps went too far. There was another mother in, again, London. What is up with that? Told a kid, I'll rip your face off, right? This child was bullying her son. She had a moment of rage, right? Pretty much cussed this kid out left and right. There is a video of her because the bully took out his phone, videoed this mother, pretty much telling him that she'll F him up, F up his parents. She will rip his face off. They were trying to find his mother. This is back in 2019, mind you, right? But I will tell you this. If you just put in moms confronting bullies on the internet, multiple instances. So it tells me one of two things. One, there's clearly a problem here, right? It's clearly a problem. And you got to think, one of my guilty pleasures is Snapped. There's got to be a point where as a parent, you just flip. You're like, you know what? Clearly nothing's going to be done. The school hasn't done anything. Maybe I talked to the parents and that didn't go so well. So maybe I go, I try to figure out like exactly where some of this goes, but this was clearly a moment of snapping that she's talking about ripping off people's faces and beating up the kids' parents and beating them up. That's a tad bit, it's a little far. I get it. But maybe she snapped in that moment that she'd had enough. She had enough of seeing her child come home in tears, you know, and whatever else, you know. You have to, I know we have to weigh it, but it's wrong for the kid to be bullying her child. That's wrong to begin with. And we're going to find out. Hayner says, what about when the bullies are not physical? With our environment being more sensitive to the mental issues these kids are dealing with being bullied verbally and even digitally. Yes, I remember my niece was getting things through text and social media. So it wasn't always physical. There were some physical things not too long ago. There was some other things, you know, and I don't know why I was picked on. I can't really tell you. I mean, I know I looked scrawny. You know, I was the nerd, and I know if you look at the 80s movies, which is where I'm going to guess a lot of us grew up in like the 80s. I know there are some that are not, but there was always the movie of the nerd being picked on by the jock. I mean, we've seen it. They take the books, they put them in the dumpster, they put them in the toilet, they hang the guy. Like, people were being treated awful in these movies, and we laughed about it as if it was no big deal, as if no one was hurt. And people were really being hurt, right? Like, I've never had my books or anything treated in that manner. When I got to high school, it was much better, but middle school, ooh, the girl, she stayed after school fighting people. It's just, you know. And then my sister showed up one day, and that also helped in squashing that. Okay. Because you know, it was just one of those things where she wasn't part of the crowd. She overheard the situation, and someone said, "Hey, let's get together and go pick on Gwendolyn today." And she was like, which one is that? Right? So, I mean, this one. Okay. Ron says, I was bullied for 2 months in second grade until I said to the bullies, let's fight right here and right now. He changed his tune. I was never bullied again. I mean, and I know we don't want to teach our kids to react in that manner, but I don't know if the talking nowadays would work. Now, I know in my day, we tried the talking thing and then we scrapped it out. A lot of times we just scrapped it out, right? Like we put up the dukes. We fought that day, and then 3 days later, we were like best friends. I mean, it's the most ridiculous relationship. I know it's not healthy, but I'm not going to pretend like we didn't do that as a kid. Like that's what we fought all the time as a kid. You know, you kind of come in and out of a relationship. It's like, get off my porch. You take my toys, and, you know, and but before the week was out, we were best friends again. And it was like, yeah, remember how we were fighting? It's like, yeah, I remember that. But nowadays, it's different. It's because they're coming at these children from so many places. As Hayner mentions, not always physical, it's the mental too. It's digital as well. So, Gary says, London's about them paws. Clearly, I don't know what's going over there in London. I'm not even sure what's going on, but there were a lot of instances of these London mums doing the deal. Black 8 Element says, you can't have your mama coming in to fight for you. That is true. That part, okay, I get that. I get it. But, you know, they never said how old these kids were. Like, they didn't say if they were like fourth grade. That they were not, I know they were not preteens. They were not in junior high. So we're thinking elementary. And I know that's, you don't really want that to happen. But what do you... Danny says, I fight kids. Okay, now I'm here's the deal. I'm gonna say it. And my brother was witness, and I'm okay. I don't mind being honest about who I am. Like, people talk about authenticity, and you know, Gwendolyn doesn't wear any pearls because I would have clutched them and pulled them off by now. I know exactly who I am as a person. God bless me. Thank him for grace and mercy. But my brother does recall when we were at an amusement park and there were some teenagers who found themselves to be a little bit much, and they were just jumping the line at this park. And I thought to myself, surely your parents have raised you, but like, everybody's out here with their kids waiting in line to ride the roller coaster, and these teens are just, you know, jumping the line, and not one adult said anything to them. Not one. So they get to where I am. The young lady drops the chain. I put the chain back. And I am thinking to myself, I want her to put this chain back on the ground. Like, I want her to try. She looks at me like, how dare you? And I'm thinking, yeah, we have all paid money to wait. You should wait like everybody else waits. So we move forward. And before I know it, this kid is exactly where I am. I put her at maybe 15, 16. I am clear. If you don't teach your kid how to act in public, someone else may very well teach them. Now, my brother is not like me. He is so gracious and so loving. It's so disgusting. Jonathan was like, Gwendolyn, it's not that big a deal, but it is a big deal because some of these kids are like rabid dogs. They get in a group and all of a sudden everybody's got like a puffed chest. Sometimes you meet an adult who's like, I'm not going to play that game. I've paid my money. I've been waiting. It's hot here in Houston. You won't have to wait. It's just what that is. Right? So I admit I am that person. And I'm sure you're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe Gwendolyn. Yes, Gwendolyn is that person. So I go back to it because everybody says, no, it wouldn't be me. I would never. But would you? There's a reason why Snapped has like 15 seasons. People have found, like, they found that tipping point. They fell over. Something just like clicked in them and it was done. It's what it is. John said the new school bully is wicked though, very. And they have different ways to get in your child's head. God bless it. It is completely different. Patty says, unfortunately, I believe parents have stopped parenting. Ooh, Patty, now you know that's another topic. Society has lost its moral barometer, and as a result, the ripple effect runs through this and so many other issues in today's world. Ooh, man, we don't want to talk about parenting, Patty, but we probably should. We'll have to table that discussion because that right there, okay, that right there, that is definitely something that has made the difference. It takes a village to raise kids. Well, it takes a village to make them act right. That is true, because when we were growing up, and I don't want to talk about anybody's age here, but I got a clue. In my neighborhood, it was Mrs. Seymour, Mrs. Rockamore, and Miss Pat. Okay. So you just didn't go out and act any kind of way. If your parents were there, one of those other parents were there, and they were checking. Even the Cantus across the street. Everybody was checking. It's like, should you be doing that? Wait till your parents get home, right? It wasn't just, don't talk to my kid, don't do, and Patty, she didn't stir it up some more dust. Black Eighth Element. I got bullied from my clothes in middle school, but I learned everybody has flaws, so I exposed theirs. Ew. So you went the mental route. Okay, I like it. And shout out to Mary Lively Ma L. She says, I agree with Patty. Okay, so we got to talk about some of this parenting. Maybe not today, because I don't know. We have it today. Anybody's mama, we're spanking. You are right. We just didn't act any kind of way. We just didn't. And, you know, parenting has parenting has changed. Clearly it has. Parenting has changed. But here's my next question, because this is where I go to a place of, you know, I know what we say in society, but look at what we glorify. So, superheroes, they're vigilantes, and they are the worst vigilantes at that. They are the absolute worst. If anyone's seen The Punisher, my goodness, The Punisher is like, you know, I get that you want to handle this crime boss. It's still illegal. It's still a crime. It is still a crime, right? Batman, okay, he has no superpowers, but he is a vigilante. Okay, he's a vigilante. If you've ever seen, what was it, Marvel? I think it was Captain America: Civil War. I want to say it is, right, where they were trying to do all the things, but a bomb still blew up and killed some people. They ruined property. Vigilantes. They're committing crimes. But look at our movies. Now, I'm not blaming movies. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, though, is that we do have this sort of warped idea that if it's for the greater good, is it really all that bad? Is it really all that bad? Right? The Punisher, Spider-Man, all of these superheroes, you know, we say they're fighting the bad guy, but sometimes I'm not so sure. Are they fighting the bad guy? Is that what's really going on? It's a good question. Now, do I believe that some people have taken that mindset of, these people are not doing what's right, so I'm going to take it upon myself to right the wrong? I do believe it. And let me tell you where I'm going to go with this really quick, because I know we're coming so close to an end. The Tulsa Massacre, okay? Because there was an accusation of a young Black person assaulting a white person, and there was a white mob that rioted and set that Black Wall Street, that district, that city on fire. Vigilante, street justice, as they say. Were they right? Absolutely not. The number of Black Americans arrested that day, the amount of property damage, the persons killed, it was by no means close to being right. By no means. Is there a limit? Is there a tipping point for us? I believe everybody does have a tipping point. I believe everybody does. Gary says the bus driver, Mr. Patton, the law school teachers had the parents on speed dial. You know what? It was a different, but there was so much more communication back then. You know, we really talked as a community, and You really couldn't get away with hardly anything because somebody's parent somewhere was going to hold you accountable and then tell your parent and they're going to hold you accountable too. Black Eighth Element also says there are too many loopholes in the justice system. There are, which is why, like, I'm going to end with this for anyone who has ever watched Luther and enjoys Luther. God bless him. I remember the episode where the estranged husband, it's like season 1, kills his estranged wife's boyfriend, right? She goes upstairs. She finds him in the bathroom. He's wrapped in plastic and everything. She immediately grabs the hammer, goes down the stairs. And as they are walking him away, she bashes him in the head, not once, but twice. Clearly, she snapped. She saw something that just tipping point, went over the edge. And I am certain that at any other point, she would never have been considered a person who would murder another person until she saw her loved one in this bathroom, wrapped in plastic, bloodied and dead. She flipped. Like I said, there's a reason why Snapped has 13, 15 something seasons. There's a reason. We're not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. My gut says, I know my tipping point. If you touch my kids, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm going to jail. I'm probably not going to be outside of some bars because I just don't understand crimes against kids and crimes against the elderly. That's my tipping point. I know it. I know it. Said I love an adventure. I know it. So we aren't saying, hey, is this right or wrong? We know that violence is wrong. But I also know that there are places where as parents, as loved ones, you see red and you snap and you say, you know what? To hell with it. I'm going to go here and make something better for my child. And this is it. But think about it. Sit with it. Because next week, I want to talk about grace and mercy. I'm going to do it. We're going to talk about grace and mercy because I get it, right? And not just grace and mercy in terms of these situations, but also in the idea of cancel culture. Because there's a lot of us out here who are throwing these rocks from our glass houses, and I don't know how anybody has any windows because they're throwing mad rocks, right? But grace and mercy, I know we need to give it to ourselves. I also believe that we should extend it to others. But even there is a line. There is a line where I'm like, there is no grace and mercy for crimes of this nature. So I'm going to end with Patty's comment. It says, I believe I have the right to protect my family. Amen to that one. And I am going to say to everybody out there, enjoy your weekend. Maybe have this chat with your family and friends and see how they feel. Not that you're judging them. We're not doing that. But it's a great conversation. Think about it. How far would you go? Would you be on Snapped? Gwendolyn would. Okay. Have a good weekend.